We have the same biochemical processes occurring in this low-carb fed state as we do in the fasted state. So we can say that just what we were seeing with the insulin to glucagon ratio of 0.8, we're seeing generally the same processes activated at around 1.3. And I'm going to come back to this in the relevance of this number when we talk about the ingestion of protein. But that brings me to that point. What happens then when we add protein to the diet, to these ratios? We are a community that appreciates and respects insulin. To what degree do we need to worry about the insulinogenic effect of the amino acids as a part of the proteins that we ingest? Well, let's look. In the fasted state, if someone is doing this long-term-ish fast, hopefully they're being smart about it, hopefully they're avoiding refeeding syndrome. When they eat protein, we see a change in the insulin to glucagon ratio going from 0.8 down to 0.5. And so we see this relative increase in glucagon over whatever relative change is happening with insulin. That's not surprising. That's exactly what we saw with the dogs. Do you remember how the insulin didn't change, and yet the glucagon changed substantially? It lowered the insulin to glucagon ratio. So putting this person, at least maintaining them in this very catabolic state. Now with the standard American diet, are you ready? When this person eats protein, we see that their ratio goes up to 70. So about a 20-time increase. And so this kind of gets to the heart. This gets to the heart of our collective appreciation of the insulinogenic effects of the proteins we eat. Because it's justified, but we have to put it in the right context. For those of us who are controlling carbohydrates and have a healthy respect for insulin, this is us here. Now, what do you think is going to happen? You ready? When a person eats protein on a low-carb diet, it changes from this relatively low level and goes up to 1.3. There is, in fact, no change. And technically speaking, there's a 6% change, which means that it stays at 1.3. There's a 6% change as opposed to this 20 times change that we saw in the standard American diet. So if we put these two head to head, and we feed them the diets, the standard American diet and the low-carb diet, as was done years ago, and we give them 1 gram per kilogram of protein. And this is, I'm just sort of recapping what we just talked about. And we look at the insulin to glucagon effects, we see that there's this dramatic increase in the insulin to glucagon ratio on the standard American diet fed side, and yet no such phenomenon occurring. We have the maintenance of the relatively low insulin to glucagon ratio that we see with the standard American diet. And so the numbers changed accordingly like we saw earlier.